around. Anyway. Change it up, like, I think it was last year, so cold outside. And I said, here, I told her, she's on it, she's on it. And I was like, okay. I just held them and covered them, and I was like, I guess. That's natural consequence. I told her what to do, but it's good.
Going back class.
How are you, babies?
My babies are good.
Might have figured it out somehow.
Probably not on it. My wits about it.
We'll see them. They're coming on Friday, next Friday.
Wow.
They are.
They are so helpful.
They're all spending the night with y'all.
I guess they might as well be. I know you can tell the middle one, but the other two.
The only way is Elijah has an extra toe. So I feel around. This is Elijah. But his mommy does that too. So when they remove the toe, it's going to be hard.
She'll leave that on there.
Leave it for a while. That's right. So, yeah, they say it's very, very common.
Yeah.
Really, very common. They just take them off.
Here's my nephew.
But that's take it off because you can never use it.
Yeah, it's one over there.
That's Ellen's brother.
Lots of times.
I'm like, Ellen's witness their places.
One of them, well, the last time I saw, if you put them side by side, one of them has thicker hair, but the other one's gonna catch up with that, so that doesn't work. They both got this little cowlick, and it's both at the same little spot, and I'm like, couldn't you have one had it on this side and one on this side? I mean, they're identical, so. Identical. Except for the toe. If you look at both of them, you can tell something about them is different, but you can't put your finger on what it is.
Or tell when you look
Or tell you when you look at each one of them separately. Because Matthew will do that every time he calls. He'll go, okay, and he'll put Daniel on there. I'm like, hey, Daniel, and he goes, okay, Mom, which one is this? And I'm like, and I'm like, I don't know.
Was there twins or triplets in your family?
No.
No, okay.
You know the Morris girls, Katie.
Yes.
I had the hardest time figuring them out. And but they're part is
Hard.
different. And then when they worked at camp, one of them would always wear a hat and the other one would wear a headband.
Okay.
But I would see one of them and have a conversation, and then I would see the other one. I'm like, I don't know if I don't know if they were. But I finally figured them out after I saw more.
I would always look at him and go, Claire or Katie. And I know that people did that to him, like, you're looking at my part. And I'm like, yes, I am. That's the only way I can tell y'all apart. Because Claire started over here like a C. And Katie started hers over here like a K. There you go.
The pink part.
She's got it.
Oh,
I'll remind her.
I'm likely to,
Oh, yours
Is that right here?
Mine is too, my thing.
I know.
Oh, come on up here.
I have mine here.
Sit right. Now,
Sit up
I gotta sit by somebody that'll poke me, keep me away.
Come here, I'll help.
Had a cup of coffee and everything. It don't think it matters.
It was good.
Anyway. Oh,
Yeah.
it's just easy comfort food, you know? It's making us I loved it. We had a great time.
I mean, that's me. Yeah. Yeah.
I didn't care, I was busy.
That's right. That's a good.
Get down and go, see more.
Those don't hurt. Sandy gave 3 animal crackers today, so. Sandy did? Sandy
Oh,
did,
Sandy.
yeah.
You like,
He did. And he ate them all and he wanted more, but he said, no,
We said-
they're all gone.
Okay, we are on session 5,
Well, I'll take
lesson, or day 3. Day 3, lesson. Okay, so next week we have our praise and pie. Right. And then after that,
Next week, we start, Reagan starts with the last lesson, the video, and then the last lesson. Yep.
and so then
And that'll be it.
first,
That'll get us, the first of the year,
Well, how can we get through this?
we're almost through.
okay.
So when is she, when we class?
no, we don't make it.
Okay. Second.
So day 3 is hungry for his presence, and this whole session 5 has been about the presence of God, and not just the omnipresence that He's present everywhere, but the manifest presence of God. So we've learned the difference between the two is the manifest presence is presence of God personally for you, one-on-one. Okay, what is the personal presence of God in your life? I mean, how do you tap into that? Because it is very different from just omnipresent, which seems to be very general. Okay. So I want to start by asking you to reflect back to the time of the Israelites, traveling through the desert, trying to get to the promised land, and think of all the ways that Israelites experienced the physical, or that they physically experienced the presence of God. Or some ways that they physically experienced the presence of God.
Daylight, night, something, something got in the way.
Cloud by
Yeah.
day and
Yeah.
over by
Well,
night.
yeah.
Okay. Okay. Now, which I know is Sister She. Had to
The water that came from dry.
be. Right.
Parting of the Red Sea.
Yes.
The ark.
Ark of the Covenant. Okay. Well, before that, God appearing to Moses in the burning bush. So there were some very distinct, obvious ways that Moses and the Israelites were able to experience the presence of God. So even with all of those obvious, really very dramatic ways to experience the presence of God, Moses always wanted more of God and His presence. So let's look at Exodus 33, verses 3. Exodus 3, excuse me. Whoever would like to read that. Exodus 33, 3.
Go up to a land flowing with milk and honey, but I will not go up lest I consume you on the way, for you are a stiff-necked people. When people heard this disastrous word, they mourned. No one put on his ornaments.
So he said, but I will not go with you because I might destroy you on the way. Okay. So what exactly caused the people to mourn? Okay, he wasn't going with you. So it's sort of like when, I guess, when you get to that point where with your kids, where they come in. Okay, and God was saying, I can't, I might destroy you along the way. And that put out. That's where I am. That put out. Think about all the things that went on during that time. It's easy to understand what God. Okay, let's read Deuteronomy 8 and and verse eight and 4. Now, this is just a verse that has always stuck out to me. It's not really in for study, but it's just a teeny little way where they were able to experience the presence, the manifest presence of God while they were in the wilderness. During these 40 years, your clothes did not wear out and your feet did not swell. I can't walk very far without my feet swelling, especially right now with it warming up, right?
Every day.
Okay.
Mom has it right there.
But that's just how detailed his provision for them was during that time. Their clothes didn't wear out. I mean, wow. Okay, now we're so like 40 years I don't get anything new. Wait,
Really?
okay. But I mean, they went 40 years and their clothes were like brand new. Okay, their feet didn't swell. I mean, that's amazing. Just how present he was with them and how he gave them such detailed care. Okay, God desires followers desperate for his presence. People who don't necessarily want his blessings, but want him. Now, that's a pretty big statement. Okay, people who don't necessarily want his blessings, but want him. Now, that's a mature Christian, right? So what is the difference in his blessings, wanting his blessings, and just wanting
I thought prayer.
prayer, right?
You want all of me, know him more than blessing, because he has more to offer.
So it's more than just the physical, how we can see him providing for us. Even though that is so, especially how dramatic it was when the Israelites were traveling in the desert, just wanting more of him and what he is to us, to our souls. God wants followers like Moses, people who balk at the idea of going anywhere without his leading. So, if God was not going to go with them, there was no need for them to go. That was definitely Moses. If you're not going to go, I mean, does that do us? Okay? And they were very well acquainted with the fact that they were not able to meet their needs. Right? That's one thing that being in a desert years would definitely teach you. Okay, there's no food. Okay, I can't provide for myself. Okay, there's no food, there's no drink, there's nothing. I can't do anything to take care of myself. So those desperate for God realize that only with God's presence can they survive these journeys. And when life is going along pretty easily, nothing's really in our way, we can get a false sense of security. We can think, okay, I got this we got it going. Everything's going our way. And then something comes along, and we're reminded, no, we can't. We can't walk this journey without him. Okay. So just a little reminder question. The following words describe the term manifest. Obvious, clear, visible, marked, noticeable, observable. How is God's manifest presence different from his own presence? Obvious, clear, visible, marked, noticeable, observable.
Like prayer.
Prayer works everywhere, doesn't it? How's it different from his own?
I would say for some things that you can see, observe, touch, not tangible.
Gotta give me no matter what, like it just is, but like manifest presence. Like,
So it definitely is something you have to tune into, right? Something you have to be looking for. And that whole tuning into God's manifest presence is through his Holy Spirit, okay? And that his Holy Spirit is dwelling within us. Now the next part we get into, starts talking about something that really steps on my toes. Says God knows that his people will sin, but he refuses to bless a place where people are stubborn, rebellious, and set ways. I can be stubborn as a mule. Okay. Now there's a lot of good things about being stubborn. Okay. They say if you convince a stubborn person of what's right, that's right. Okay. If you're stubborn for what's right. But just the quality of being stubborn is something we have to keep checking. Okay? Just being stubborn, just wanting our way. Stubbornness is so offensive to God that it elicits the threat of complete destruction. Okay, and we've got some verses, some references there. One is Deuteronomy 9, 8 and 14. I'm close to that. So Deuteronomy 9, 8 and 14. At Mount Sinai, you made the Lord angry enough to destroy you. Verse 14. Get away so that I may destroy them and make the whole world forget who they are. Then I will make another nation that will be bigger and stronger than they are. I mean, that's how put out God got with them due to their stubbornness. So much so, I'm just going to wipe them all out. I'll just start bring up another nation from whence my son will be born and save the world. Okay, so let's look at Deuteronomy 9, 6 through 12. That's still on the same area. Deuteronomy 9, 6 through 12. Anybody there?
Understand then that it is not because of your righteousness that the Lord your God is giving you this good land to possess, for you are a stiff-necked people. Remember this and never forget how you provoked the Lord your God to anger in the desert. From the day you left Egypt until you arrived here, you have been rebellious against the Lord. At Horeb, you aroused the Lord's wrath so that he was angry enough to destroy you. When I went up on the mountain to receive the tablets of stone, the tablets of the covenant that the Lord had made with you, I stayed on the mountain 40 days and 40 nights. I ate no bread and drank no water. The Lord gave me 2 stone tablets inscribed by the finger of God. On them were all the commandments the Lord proclaimed to you on the mountain out of the fire on the day of the assembly. At the end of the 40 days and 40 nights, the Lord gave me the 2 stone tablets, the tablets of the covenant. Then the Lord told me, go down from here at once because your people, whom you brought out of Egypt, have become corrupt. They've turned away quickly from what I commanded them and have made a cast idol for themselves.
So how long have they been obstinate or stubborn or set?
40 days.
Since the beginning, really.
Right. Okay, since the day you left Egypt. Okay, so they're at basically the gates of the promised land. They're right there. Okay, that's what's happening right now. He's saying you've been obstinate, you've been stubborn since the day that you left. How did God respond to their actions at Mount Horeb? Okay, this is this.
He didn't like it. One thing.
Right, angry enough to destroy. Now, the next question is, while the Lord was meeting with Moses on the mountain, the people became impatient. What did the people fill their time doing? Okay, and of course, they were filling their time making an idol for themselves. But
A lone cat.
all right. Okay, my version says, verse 12, then the Lord told me, get up and go down quickly because the people you brought from Egypt are ruining themselves. They are ruining themselves. This is the New Century Version. Okay, have you ever, like, been around someone that has caused their own undoing? Okay, they've started off with a difficult situation, and instead of handling that the correct way, they just got carried away with themselves. They sort of lost themselves in the situation, and they end up ruining themselves by the choices they make and the way they decide to handle the situation that's not themselves. Okay, that's what it makes me think of when I think about ruin, when this version uses those words. Okay, we don't have to finish this out. Are you living an obstinate lifestyle with before God in any area of your life right now. And I can feel like I'm chugging along in certain areas, way. Okay, but there can also be some kind of stronghold in life, something that's got its talents in you, okay, that can cause you to become stuck. There's someone in your life that you feel like has wronged you, okay, and you choose not to forgive. You say, oh, no, but you haven't, okay, and that unforgiveness sinks into your heart and takes hold of it. It will ruin you, right? It will ruin you. Okay? It will turn you inside out and it will ruin you. That's why, giving, it's a command, okay? But it's also an act of freedom, okay? When you choose to forgive, let that, God take that, God handle that, forgive, set it down, okay? Get out of your heart, rid of it, okay? Then you can move on in peace. Move on in peace. If you choose to hang on to it, it's not working. So what idols have you built for yourself? When I think about idols, I think about something that I turn to or I'm tempted to turn to instead of God when things are difficult. Right? Is there something you turn to other than God to distract yourself, to fill a void? Talk about that, yeah. Okay, any of those areas, potential areas for worship, basically. I'll just do worship. Okay, so stubbornness can be devastating to our spiritual health. Okay, we cultivate the presence of God in our lives not merely through our actions, but through our hearts and our attitudes. So we have to strive for constant humility before God. Okay, and stubbornness basically revolves around ourselves, right? And what we. There's a song by, is it Forrest Frank? Your Way's Better. You heard that? My grandkids that. Okay, and it talks about everything he had to go through to finally figure out that God's way was better. Okay, because God will He'll let us try to solve our problems or, make our stubborn choices. He'll let us do that. But normally it leads us down to a spot we don't want to be. And we realize, God really didn't know what he was talking about until we forgave the person. Okay? He really didn't know what he was talking about until we not to take part in certain things, have certain actions in my repertoire, the way I respond, my language. Okay, all of those things, they will take us to a point where we can ruin ourselves. And we really can't. Stubbornness also quenches our thirst for God. So we become so wrapped up in what we want. I'm talking to myself. Not imagine. We become so wrapped up in what we want and what we think the answer is the problem. We become so wrapped up in ourselves, okay, that it quenches our thirst for God. Okay? We can worship ourselves just like worship. Okay. Psalms 42:6. Psalms 42:6. Get full to your phone. So she goes on to mention that we have to evaluate ourselves to see if we become stiff-necked, because when that happens, we begin to lose our hunger, thirst. In Psalms 42:6, you're going to see what caused David to truly be thirsty. Somebody have that?
I am pressed, therefore I remember land the feet from out.
Okay, so one version says I'm depressed. Okay.
My soul's downcast.
Cast down.
So it's those low places in our lives, right? When we finally come to the end of ourselves. Okay, gone as far as we can take ourselves. We realize that's it. For it. Okay, sometimes it takes that for us to hunger and thirst for God. Okay, we don't feel strong desire until we're in a position of desperate. I love this verse from Isaiah 63:9. It's over margin. It says, "In all their suffering, He suffered. In all their suffering, He suffered, and the angel of His presence saved. He redeemed them because of His love and compassion. He lifted them up and carried them all the days past." So, I mean, that first little bit there, in all their suffering, He suffered. Well, that's all because of God's great love for us. Okay? If He didn't love us, it wouldn't bother us. Right? It wouldn't bother us because He loves us so much. Watching us suffer is suffering. Yeah. But His response is what is so wonderful. He saved them, He redeemed them, He lifted them up, and He carried them. Okay? That's not just for the Israelites, that's for us. So, hungry for His peace. Lack of peace is horrible. Okay? Trying to get back to that, find that peace. Okay? When our lives align with God's plans, we find peace. When our lives align with God's plans, we find peace. So, what is it in your life that has the ability to rob peace?
Well, anytime you're going through a traumatic situation, or during the time of love, and you're dealing with children, adults, as they grieve.
When things are unexpected for us. I hate when I'm just having like a great day and then either I think of something or something happens that just wasn't expected, and now I'm worried about this thing, and it's just without that.
Else with some ability to take.
We get so anxious and medical diagnosis, need additional tests, play the waiting game. It takes forever. Or waiting, and not knowing what's happening. So everything could be okay, not okay, just play that waiting game, but it's very stressful.
Now, all the things that have been mentioned, situations, circumstances, they all fall under one head, and that is the head of not in our control. Okay? And I think that's really what everything comes down to. You know, as long as we have this false sense of being in control, everything seems to, when in reality, never control, right? We never control. We control ourselves, our choices, we control our choices. There's so much that we feel like we have control, but there's so much deep control. Absolutely not. No driver's seat.
No, me.
I'm not going to my reflection. I see my reflection off my glasses. Yeah. But so much that is not under our control. So how can we find peace? It's the situation.
You have to say to yourself, right? but it will work.
To have that
It may
patience.
not be what you want.
Okay, so peace is a gift that accompanies salvation. We're not on a search, as believers, we're not on a search for peace. It's already in us and available to us. Peace results from God's presence in our lives. So having God's presence in our lives gives us that peace that, no, I'm not in control, but it's a good thing I'm not, right? Because if I tried to solve this on my own, it's not good, right? So God being in control is the answer to our problem. It's just our fleshly selves that want to take charge. So now there's a situation she talks about on page 134, and it's a deal where she and her husband are disagreeing about something, and she just can't let it go. Okay, so she keeps burning it up, burning it up, burning it up. Okay, so why do you think sometimes we forge ahead even when we feel the Spirit trying to bring us back? Definitely, because why would we be wrong? You know, why would we be doing it if we thought it was wrong?
How can we be wrong?
So why do you think we sometimes forge ahead when the Spirit is telling us to stop? There's some reasons, okay? You don't have to raise your hand. Okay? Because my hand will be up on all these. Okay. Self-centeredness. We just want our own way. But a lot of times when you get your own way, that's what you got. Is your own way. That's it. That's all you got. Okay, blindness. We can't see from other people's perspective. That's hard, isn't it? Okay, stubbornness. We're just not going to give in. Just not going to do it. Gonna do it. Control. We're afraid to surrender the driver's seat. And I think that's one of Satan's biggest tricks, is to deceive us into thinking that we are in the driver's seat. So, out of those, self-centeredness, blindness, stubbornness, control. You can check this. Because at times, we're just humans. Okay, so we're going to do these things. Okay. So, we're reminded when Moses says, your presence does not go, don't make this. And then God's response to that is, my presence will go with you, and I will rest. Okay. Peace is a crucial component in hearing God's voice and deciphering his word. Now, I think I talked a week or two ago about that tug of war that sometimes we can, okay, when we're trying to make a decision, when you feel a tug of war ensuing in your heart, pay close attention. Peace or a lack of it can settle debate or argument for us, leading to great decisions. So, have you ever heard the expression, just couldn't get a peace about it? I prayed about this, I prayed for this particular thing, but I just couldn't get a peace about it. Okay, that's a blessing.
Hard letter on this, I'm gonna open up an argument.
You and Sheriff get together. Yeah, back and forth. I just couldn't get a piece of it. And I mean, I don't always like that I'm not getting a piece about it, but I do like that God uses peace in that way to communicate with me. Okay, so let's look at Psalms 32. Psalms 32. Verses 3 and 4. And this is an example of disturbance, a lack of peace can cause. Psalms 32, verses 3.
I refuse to set my body face to flag and I groaned all day long. Day and night, your hand of physical on me. My strength evaporated like something.
That's a nice visual picture, isn't it? My strength evaporated like water in the summer. So a lack alive. So that's me alive, me from the inside out, unconfessed sin. So,
Think of that as children, sometimes we lie, we don't tell it, and it just eats at us.
I remember when I was about 8, 9, 10, and I was a real nerd, which I still am. But I wanted to be able to buy notebooks because it was really white and it had these really distinct lines, really distinct. And we bought the notebook paper that had word lines. You remember that? Well, I wanted. So I snuck into my parents' bedroom, and I took 4 things, and it ate me. I got my pretty paper. I got my pretty white paper, crisply lined. It ate me alive. Ate me alive until I went in and told them I was just crying. I took pennies in there. They just, they were really sweet, gracious, sort of flat underneath the breath. But it did. It tore me up. Yes, it ate me alive. And so that's a blessing also, that something will disturb you that much that you've got to get it off your chest. Okay, I'm not going to ask anybody else. You don't have to tell us about the time that you being eaten alive.
Yeah.
Okay, so how does relief come with surrender and confession? How does that? You just feel clean and you've exposed yourself, right? Totally yourself. Have you ever done that? Like just gone and just told on yourself? When you message, go deep and telling yourself? Okay. King David's lack of peace brought a response. His response was that. Okay. That's definitely the way to get peace. We can have a feeling of peace when we can have feeling false peace. We can get to a point we're not careful, we can have false peace. And that's just when we get to a stop.
Instead of trusting God that whatever happens will be great. I think sometimes the worst is when everything happens how we're hoping it would. And we're like, oh, I feel so good about everything and I'm so grateful. But it's like, but how did you feel? From today whose kid didn't get something that they wanted and they worked hard for, and she said maybe this is a good lesson for her dad and her almost like they needed maybe their kid to get this. They're just learning how to and sometimes work out. Trust God in it.
Sometimes get take a breath.
And justify ourselves sometimes.
Right.
Mess up, just tell. This is why. This is why. And we just keep telling ourselves that over and over and over and over until we can come to a peace where decisions.
I try so hard, especially as I've gotten older. I see things better. You see things better. But I make my mistakes. But every morning I get up, thank God. And I look around at nature. I live out the stick. But I look out and I see that just nice. And I said, thank you, God. It's just a good way to start the day. And I think about that throughout the day. And every time I look out and I see a bird or I see my deer, oh, thank you. Reminds me so much of things like that. That's just. I wish we would think more about things like that. Now we see things. Our Father has created and provided for us. It's for us to see, appreciate, love, and how intricate every little thing is. Intricately created by the master's hand.
Keeping our eyes on those things and having that heart of gratefulness is what keeps us from staying by. Not so.
When I look at Campbell Street, and I look at all of you here, and all the wonderful, all you young couples that have babies now, that just, oh, they just blesses me so when I walk in on Sunday morning and I hear those children, I don't care how loud they cry, they smile all over. And don't think you're not doing a great job, because just to have them all, it's just wonderful.
Good, they are definitely loud.
Oh, they're wonderful. You just be, and y'all are doing such a good job raising faith. Proud of it.
But she goes on and offers up Jonah as an example of false peace. So what was Jonah's response to God asking him to go to?
Maybe get one too.
He was mad. He didn't work out.
He was mad. He was even mad when they repented.
Oh, it was awful. It was terrible.
Okay.
Mad. Mad as an old witch.
To the point that he could get in a ship and go the opposite direction and feel just fine about it, right? Okay, Jonah 1:1-5. Jonah.
The word of the Lord came to Jonah, son of Amittai. Go to the great city of Nineveh and preach against it, because its wickedness has come up before me. But Jonah ran away from the Lord and headed for Tarshish. He went down to Joppa, where he found a ship bound for that. After paying the fare, he went aboard and sailed from Tarshish to flee from the Lord. Then the Lord sent a great wind on the sea, and such a violent storm arose that the ship threatened to break up. All the sailors were afraid, and each cried out to his own God, and they threw the cargo into the sea to lighten the ship. But Jonah had gone below deck, where he lay down and fell into a deep sleep. The captain went to him and said, "How can you sleep? Get up and call your God. Maybe he will take notice of us, and we will not perish."
Okay, so what was Jonah doing during all this storm? Okay, he was at peace, wasn't he? He was quite peaceful that he was running, right? So, excuse me, even times when we shouldn't be experiencing peace and heart, okay, is when we're probably, running the other way, okay, making decisions in the opposite direction of God. Okay, so if we look at Luke 8:23 and 24, we'll see a big contrast to that. Luke 8:23 and 24.
As they sailed, he fell asleep. A squall came down on the lake, so that the boat was swept. They were in great danger. The disciples went and woke him, saying, "Master, Master, we're going to drown." He got up and rebuked the wind and the raging waters. The storm subsided, and all was silent.
So Jesus, he was sleeping, right? Just like Jonah was sleeping, right? But Jonah's peace was not false peace, right? His was false. So wherever we're trying to decide if we are in God's, discerning God's will, distinguishing between true peace and false peace, she offers up 3 different red flags, okay, that we can note. So are we running away? Just trying to discern God's will, distinguish between true and false peace. Are we running away from his will?
Jonah is, but we're not.
You don't want to. Sometimes we do. Sometimes we know the right thing to do the opposite. So if you find yourself in a place where you're running away, okay, then you're not feeling bad about it. Real bad about it, okay? That's probably false peace. Okay. Let's look at Psalms 139, 7 through 10. Psalm 139.
Where can I go for your spirit? Where can I flee from your presence? If I go up to the heavens, you are there. If I make my bed in the depths, you are there. If I rise on the wings of the dawn, I settle on the far side of the sea. Even there your hand will guide me. Right hand will hold me fast.
So that really points to the foolishness of Jonathan, doesn't it? Okay, it doesn't matter how far. It doesn't matter if you decide to go absolute opposite end of work where you're asked to go. You're not going to get away from the presence. Okay? Because I'm present. Okay. So another red flag may be, are we compensating? Okay? Are we trying to feel good? Something else. Know there's something missing. That missing part is probably our obedience. Okay, and so then therefore we don't have any peace, so we're trying to fill that void up, like busyness. Just keep yourself really busy. Okay, to try to think. Have you ever had a hard time being alone?
I know when I took in my house. It's not hard. I hadn't moved the house.
Okay, because there is a void, right? With a person. Okay? Sometimes we can have that void because that doesn't happen. It's just an example. Okay, do you ever say chocolate? Yes. Food is my great escape. I've been trying to escape some things.
Don't go there.
Okay. Okay, the need for attention. Is that used it? Wait. Okay. Anger looking for an object. Which way the pity party? Had that response. The need to control. Sometimes the more out of control something is, the more in control you want to be. Okay, food, bring me food. That's the one we don't want to talk about. So we do all these things in an effort to escape lack of peace inside. So that lack of peace is like that. You suck something into that spot to try to. Okay, another red flag, and this is what Linda was talking about, is are we thinking? Yeah, we think. Okay, if we find ourselves in a place where we're just unhappy, we just cannot get ourselves about it. Okay, that's probably a red flag that more like peace, rather than, being in God's will. We're trying to run the opposite direction. Okay, so God's peace allows you to have gratitude and thanksgiving in your heart, in your mind, and all this. So does thankfulness have anything to do with your circumstances? Sure can. Sure. Okay. It can be that big black blob in front of you that you can't get around to see everything else that's going on. When peace rules in your heart, there will be thankfulness, praise on your face. Okay. Sometimes thankfulness and praise has to. Okay. Inner peace brings us into closer relationship with God, better preparing us to hear His voice. And one of the verses that I like to keep close to me is 1 John 3:19 through 20. 1 John 3:19 through 20. And I'll be reading this out of the New Century Version. to those feelings of like guilt and shame. This is how we know we belong to the way of truth. When our hearts make us feel guilty, we can still have peace. God is greater than our hearts, and He knows everything. So this is how we know that we belong to the way of truth. When we feel guilty, but we're not hovering over in some thinking we're going to be struck like holes in like what was like okay, because we've done something wrong. We know we're in God's peace. We know we belong to the way of truth. If we feel guilty, we still for sure His love, for sure His grace. That's truth, and that's God. Have you do that? I've liked that.
Next week will be Tuesday night. Then we'll meet the next week, video for the next session. And then Reagan's gonna take the last shoot. Then it's Christmas.
Thank y'all. You have a good week.
My mom turned it off. So, yeah, okay. Karen, what about you? Karen.
Carla and Leon.
It takes me Tuesday and Wednesday.
Now, is Erin still living?
Let's just say that he lives there's no future. I'm just not trying.
Yeah.
And it's on him because I'm there.
That's right.
It does. But he just gets tired, so.
Well, I just, I mean, this year, you probably have heard about now, but
Ellen's store.
I wear
Ellen,
they have
whatever it's called, yeah, what the lady, thank you, whatever it's called. I've been there a few times. Yeah, and actually she works in her house. Yeah, by the time you get off work, it's closed, yeah. Yeah.
are you missing your homeschool?
I have 2 months.
You
I'm so glad.
Thank you.
I
want to jump up and
Yeah.
They got this little
Trying to
palette. They both got it.
And like,
Plain spot, that's how it.
be right.
How are they doing? Sleeping?
Doing better.
Yeah, good, good.
Now, where did they go?
In Cersei.
Okay.
Not too far, not too far. Jasmine said, oh, she'll boss these boys around.
Yeah,
She's I'll be 400 years.
We have to go back and they
That is, done before.
Yeah, real quick.
I've done it too. It's awesome. Shop, you know, and be like,
She's 12 weeks now, so she's still
Yeah.
but she's been sick and all. It's been good, you know.
Yeah.
And, she's not, but she has which is really hard.
Yeah.
And so she's real tired, more than normal.
Yeah.
But she's been great. She's about that.
So
I've lived on her side.
She's
wanted this for 10 years.
I've been trying 10 years. I said, I don't think I did. Was it right? I didn't approve of it. And you gotta learn how to pay your bills.
Your brother has three.
Yeah.
She'll be, she's gonna be your next son. They're all coming next Friday. The boys are going home on Saturday.
That's where they would.
They just don't think they do 2 days.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
which is fine. Yeah, but she'll be here on Sunday. She said.
Mixing things to talk about.
She told us, but she told us what it was.
So they cut out early.
Yeah, they did that genetic test and all that.
Yeah. Encouraging for.
I told her she's never liked anything better.
You're gonna have to play big, that's right. You're about to get a lot of it.
You'll fit in this little, what he thinks of this person.
What if she is? Morgan, I looked for you, I said, is Morgan going to free for
Yeah, we think yours seems like one.
So June.
And they said, way to go, Mom, we never heard you say a bad word. I said, guys, I am so sorry. I don't know why I did that. I was like, bad.
Yep, she's
Okay,
getting
I gotta stop this.
You know you're a real person, you know, so they don't think, you know.
Yeah. But it was, there was folks, yay, Mom, you said a bad word.
They got like, okay, good. I've got a little
Right.
and then I might say, okay,
I like your mom. Their phones come out in them. Yeah, they're like,
yeah.
those boys
So,
out there.
okay, ready to be back in the downstairs.
Yeah,
Yes.
that's too funny.
This is so good.
It's so good. That just made my day.
I love to share it.
Love it too. Love it for you. It's awesome.
Thank you.
Can I tell people?
You can. You can.
Well, I got